as I go into that deeper place of love. Welcome home to the Monterey Center for Spiritual Living, a virtual community located in Monterey, California, and yet non-local, expanding throughout the entire global planet, this beautiful global community that we're all part of. And so I say welcome this morning as we begin our new theme for the month of May, which is Holy, Holy Uprising. And I'll break that down a little bit for you in a few moments. And we look at our focus today on this adventure called life. And just to establish a little bit of a context for our monthly theme, our May series, Holy, Holy Uprising. The first holy is spelled Wholly. And this is an adverb, which means entirely, completely, totally, and to the full extent. It is all encompassing. And the next word, holy, the traditional spelling, Holy, means that which is sacred or godly. And then the word uprising, this is a very interesting word for me. The word uprising is often associated with localized opposition against an established government or governmental agency, which may include violence. And we've seen that not only in our own country, but throughout the world, where the opposition to a principle or a practice that is in place may lead to violence. However, when we use the word uprising metaphysically, it means awakening to something new. And of course, if we look at the opposition, especially within our country, where the focus has been on police brutality in the African American community and other forms of racism and bias that is causing an uprising, it is an invitation to awaken to something new. And so, as this leading spiritual edge organization, our Centers for Spiritual Living provides teaching tools of practical spirituality that invite us to a place where we recognize that humanity is awakening to a new paradigm of consciousness. We are awakening to something new. And as we demonstrate this in our lives, and in our centers, and in our communities, and in the world at large, we're invited to rise up. We rise up in consciousness. And as we rise up, we know that love is my guide. This is our overarching principle and guideline. Love is my guide. And so here's a little what I call a prayer poem that I think demonstrates this whole concept of love is my guide. Love is my guide and is forever renewing itself through all of creation. Its power is love. It is the starting point for all inspiration, and all of life is interconnected and interwoven in this unlimited flow of energy. And this takes us back to the definition of uprising, of awakening. This takes us back to our definition of awakening, which is that which is totally inclusive. It is totally inclusive. And so love is my guide. It is the starting point of all inspiration. Love is my guide, is alive and active in me. It is the very essence of my being. I am united fully with all of life through its flow of love and energy. Love is my guide, and my life is filled with love. This love comes from the Spirit and is animated within me. I am renewed daily by this creative life force that opens my eyes to see and to love all that is around me. Love is my guide, and I am inspired to honor my unity and connection with all that I come in contact with. I let love be my guide. I love deeply, boldly, and powerfully. I willingly step into this adventure of life, engaged, energized with the Spirit. And so, if we look at the etymology for the word adventure, it includes occurrence, risk, event, and chance. And then, if we look at what we often call or describe it as an adventurous person, we come up with such words as daring, bold, audacious, fearless, brave, unafraid, dauntless, heroic, confident, enterprising, informal, gutsy, spunky, pushy. And I'm sure we can add more to that list. You get the idea. And so for just a moment, I invite you to reflect on this list of words that I just read for us. And then ask, where am I trusting love to be my guide as I take holy risks to evolve? And how often am I taking chances or embracing opportunities to let my spiritual magnificence be my experience? Where am I allowing my spiritual magnificence to be my experience? And of course, we turn to our foundation, our evolutionary vision as the Centers for Spiritual Living. And our global vision statement for today is we see a world in which each and every person lives in alignment with their highest spiritual principle, emphasizing unity with God and connection with each other. A world in which individually and collectively, we are called to a higher state of consciousness and action. And then the timeless wisdom of our science of mind principles and core concepts and values lead us to the word for today, which is creation. The physical universe is the manifest body of the one infinite reality, which we call God. And the one infinite reality is more than just the physical universe. Creation is the expression of the one infinite reality. It is inherently good and is ever evolving towards a greater expression of good. So if we just focus for just a moment on this whole idea of creation, what Ernest Holmes is inviting us to remember is that this one infinite reality that we call God is forever and ever evolving towards a greater expression of good. And so we welcome this good into our lives. Ernest Holmes had a radio show in the 1950s titled Self-Reliance and Your Adventure, wherein he proclaims, God is our adventure. God is our adventure. With God as our adventure, we recognize an expanded awareness that in life there is no risk, no failure, no uncertainty. I'll say this again. With God as our adventure, we recognize an expanded awareness that in life there is no risk, no failure, no uncertainty. Our active participation in the spiritual adventure unfolds through the divine urge, that divine creative process that is inherently and eternally calling us into our greater yet to be. There is something within. I remember there was a song that we sang in the church of my youth and the words were something within. Something within that I cannot explain, something within that holds the reins. All that I know is that there is something within. So this something that sometimes is used as a word to describe God or this infinite intelligence is that which is inherently and eternally calling us into our greater yet to be. And so I offer a couple of illustrations of how this may outpicture in our lives. And the first illustration asks the question, where is the risk? If there's only one thing happening, intelligence coming into form, found in everything, then we are holy, holy, because it comes by form and by means of us. It comes by means of us. So, what is to fear? Where's the risk? If there's only one thing happening, intelligence coming into form that is found in everything, then we must ask ourselves, what's the fear? Where's the risk? And we know that the universe responds to how we think and how we feel by looking at what is outpicturing in our lives. And sometimes this may be a difficult pill to swallow when we look at what is happening around us in our own individual life, just in our own individual life. And we may ask, what are we creating to bring about this experience in life? Holding back from new experiences because we fear failure is not the risk we are avoiding. The biggest risk we fear is not opening to our infinite possibilities to find God. Find God. That's the adventure. Find God. That's the adventure. Now you may say, well, it sounds like you're leading us into duality. If we're saying that God is all there is, that God is everywhere present, there's only one thing happening, and that is intelligence coming into form, then why do we need to find God? If God is already within me, why do I need to go and find God? It sounds like you're saying now that God is out there someplace and that I have to go look for God. This is not what we're saying. The adventure is to remember that God is within. You know, life experiences are like a veil or a cloud or a shadow that covers the eternal light that is within us. And so when we feel that that light has been diminished, that's where we go back within. The adventure is to go back within and to find God and to see God, to recognize and to know that God is absolutely all that there is. Ernest Holmes writes this in the Science of Mind textbook. In the midst of plenty, humanity lives in want because of fear. To overcome fear is the greatest adventure in the mind of everyone. Overcoming fear is the greatest adventure in the mind of everyone. And so our second illustration, or point number 2, is to say yes. Say yes to every holy opportunity. Adventure isn't exclusive to the adrenaline rush from ziplining, deep sea diving, hot air ballooning, or even public speaking. And I remember when I was planning my wife's memorial, I asked a good friend of hers from the university where they had worked together if she would be willing to say something at the memorial. And she looked at me and she said, Robert, you know, I dearly love Greer and I dearly love you. She said, but I would rather jump out of an airplane without a parachute rather than to speak in public. So that's just an illustration that I remembered of this deep fear that we may have inside of us. Practical spirituality, our teachings of Science of Mind principles, takes us on an inner adventure to find God within ourselves, in others, in nature, and in human events. And this journey, this adventure that we're taking, invites us to begin in silent communion, the silent communion of our spiritual practices. And then out of that silent communion, we expand with a smile. We expand with an act of kindness. We learn about new people, and we learn something new about the people that we currently know. We go on this adventure to discover new places and new things, to expand our horizon. This adventure begins and ends in consciousness. And every day we have opportunities to find the divine in a new way. Think about that for a moment. Every single day we have opportunities to find the divine in a new way. Raymond Charles Barker offers this in his book, The Power of Decision. And he writes, "You are the present, becoming the future. You are the present, becoming the future." And I think that really supports this idea that every day we have opportunities to find the divine in a new way. We're the present. We're becoming the future. And this journey of awakening and awareness leads us to look for and to find the divine in a new way every single day. And point number 3 of our illustration is arriving at oneness through conscious participation. If you've noticed, there's a theme that threads its way through this idea of practical spirituality. And that is being in that place of stillness, being in the place of reflection, being in that place of silence where we're going within and reconnecting with the divine, asking it to reveal itself to us. And then out of that comes action. It's like another phrase that we use in Science of Mind, and that is treat or pray and move your feet. We don't just pray and wait for God to magically drop the answer out of the air for us. We move our feet, we propel ourselves into motion to activate what we have placed into the law, because the law only says yes to what we ask of it. The universe is creatively and intelligently evolving. Within this awareness of our alignment, receptivity, and participation with the universe, we can engage, experience, we can step up, and we can step out with a sense of dedication and consecration to this adventure called life. We're invited to investigate the ways in which we hold ourselves back from life. We do this when we uncover our fears, such as being afraid of failure or afraid to appear ridiculous or foolish to others. It reminds me of the book that I read by Terry Cole Whitaker many years ago, but the book is still timely, I believe. I really do believe it's still timely. And that is, the title of the book was, "What You Think of Me Is None of My Business." And so to move into that real place of embracing what you think of me is none of my business, break free of the fear of holding yourself back, break free of the fear of failure, break free of the fear of being afraid to appear ridiculous and foolish to others because it's only their opinion. And so this leads us into the question then, what is our call to action? We are to reorient ourselves to our divine heritage, our grounding in evolutionary vision and timeless wisdom. By doing so, we become aware of the desire to expand. And when we find ourselves constricting, we spend time in the silence and listen. We're called to expand. And yet at the same time, we find ourselves constricting. And I think Deepak Chopra describes this very nicely in this book, You and the Universe. Every day, our actions exist on the cutting edge of evolution, the frontier where the mind is caught between caution and curiosity. We find ourselves where we're caught between caution and curiosity, leaning into, leaning on to, remembering, recalling, bringing forth the evolutionary vision and the timeless wisdom of the Science of Mind teachings of practical spirituality, We become aware of our desire to expand. And when we find ourselves caught between caution and curiosity, we spend time in the silence and listen. This is the adventure of the day. We step out and we step up into our spiritual magnificence, reconciling the divine unfoldment or evolution with enthusiastic participation. We do this work in community, in collaboration, and we magnify its effects. When we do this in community and in collaboration, we magnify the effects. And so this is what we are about in spiritual community, is tapping into our spiritual magnificence, knowing the very essence of who we are as divine expressions of creation. This divine unfoldment calls for our enthusiastic participation. And so let us begin now. And I offer our spiritual activity or practice for the week, and I've asked our tech team to provide this in the Zoom chat. And for those who are viewing on Facebook, we'll provide this in the comments section. And so there are three activities that we are invited to, three questions that we're invited to look at this week. Do you see yourself as a victim of circumstances or as a co-creator? Do you see yourself as a victim of circumstances or as a co-creator? Question number 2, how does life wish to express through me? How does life wish to express through me? And question number 3, what holds me back and what calls to me? What holds me back and what calls to me? This is our activity for the week, should you choose to engage. And remember, we're always at choice. And then our affirmation for the week is, with unshakable confidence, I participate fully and freely in the adventure of life. With unshakable confidence, I participate fully and freely in the adventure of life. And now I invite us to be in prayer together, knowing that the unshakable confidence that I have in my own faith, and knowing that there's a power and a presence for good, and that it is available to me at all times. And I know this because it is the truth of what I know about God, this all-prevailing presence, this power for good that is continually evolving and pulling me forward. And so I allow myself to align with spirit, that essence of who I am. And as I know this truth for myself, I know this is the true essence for everyone that is part of this particular time in space. We're all living as the life of God. We're all on this adventure, this journey called life. And in this journey called life, there are many twists and turns. And so I speak my word this morning, knowing that as I be in the flow of the twists and turns of life, as I allow myself to be a part of the divine conduit for this grand adventure called life, that everything unfolds in perfect order, in time, on time, at the right time, in all times. I know that as I continue to be grounded in the timeless wisdom and evolutionary vision of practical spirituality, principles for successful living, that everything in my life reveals itself in divine, right, and perfect order. Acknowledging those times where I may have some resistance or reticence that is based in fear, I pause and I go within And I recognize that I'm at that point between curiosity and hesitation. Curiosity and hesitation. And so I lean into curiosity. I tell the hesitation to get thee behind me, step to the side, get out of the way. And I lean into the creative expression of the divine that is calling me forth to move in the direction of my greatest yet to be. And as I know this truth for myself, I embrace it for everyone that is a part of the spiritual community, both locally and virtually. And so, in deep gratitude for all of this, I speak my word of blessing for all of our family, our local and our virtual family that are going through these transitions of life, those who are embracing and accepting the transition of loved ones. And we lift our own family member this morning, our dear Christy Schlock, into this place of love and higher elevation. And I embrace this for other families who are experiencing the transition of loved ones, knowing that the life of God is fully expressing in a different form now, and that our loved ones are even closer than they were before. Yes, we mourn the physical absence, the absence of the physical presence, and yet we know that at a deeper level, at a much deeper level, that life is eternal and life moves forward. For members of our family, and I'm making no distinction in family this morning, for members of our family that are experiencing transitions in right livelihood or divine perfect housing, safe shelter, divine right and perfect income, that all of the areas where we have an opportunity to move into our greater yet to be, recognizing our spiritual connection with God. I know and I affirm that absolutely everything is unfolding in divine, right, and perfect order. Blessing our brothers and sisters in spiritual communities, wherever they are, whatever title they go by, recognizing that all paths lead to this place called home, and home is the place of the heart. And so we all return to the place of the heart, knowing that one love, one power, and one presence is guiding everything at all times. And for this and so much more, I give thanks. I give thanks for the word that is spoken. I give thanks for all who are a part of the spiritual community. And I release this into the law, which always says yes, and I allow it to be so. And I invite you to affirm this with me as we say, and so it is. And so it is. And so it is. And so it is. It is now time for us to participate in the law of circulation. And we have an abundance statement that we share together as a reminder that the divine flow in our life is always present. And so we affirm, I recognize the presence of God within as the source of my abundance. Out of my abundance consciousness flows everything that I could desire in life. With gratitude and thanksgiving, I now participate in the flow of uninterrupted abundance. I release this visible supply as an outer symbol of my inner supply into the physical world. This prosperous experience is evidence of my abundance consciousness. And Each time I have an opportunity to stand before you and to stand with you, I offer deep, deep gratitude for the abundance consciousness of this spiritual community. For those who are local and for those who are non-local, we are sincerely grateful for the way you continue to support the teachings of this community that allows us to expand the principles of practical spirituality out into the larger world. And we have on our screen opportunities for you to experience the law of circulation. You may mail in a check to our center. The address is on the screen. You may donate through our secure website, and that address is on the screen. And you may text to give, and the text number is on our screen. And if you're using the website to donate, I invite you while you're there to go in and make sure that you subscribe to our newsletter and like us on our Facebook page, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is CSL Monterey. We love you, we appreciate you, we thank God for you. And we invite our virtual family to join us next week as we continue our theme, Holy, Holy Uprising. And our topic will be revolutionary love.